This is going to be a very, well, hopefully quick, but I don't know. I haven't done this before, so I don't know how long it's going to take. We might have pizza arrive and we'll see, do a time check at pizza o'clock. So yeah, I've been sort of away for 4 weeks now. Um, I don't think I'm fully recovered, but yeah, yet I'm getting on a plane to go to Melbourne tomorrow. So that's fun. But yeah, first stop on my tour was ElixirConf US. Um, we were sponsors of that, which was pretty exciting. And I was there to do a keynote, but there was lots to do before closing it out with the keynote with Bruce Tate. On the Tuesday, so this was kind of a whole week affair. This was the Elixir Contributors Summit, which the first time we did this was in Krakow. It was on the Saturday after ElixirConf EU. And yeah, we got, a bunch of stakeholders, community folks in the room and really nodded out sort of where we're at and where we're going. And look, I think the general vibe was the EEF is really coming into its own as a organizational structure around which the community can really gather. And Dan, who's standing up presenting there, yes, thank you, the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation. Yeah, Dan Janowski he's not on the board, but he's been doing a lot of work just evangelizing, having that kind of non-profit organizational structure to sort of gather funds and, fund doing the important but probably boring things that won't get done without sort of someone driving it. So that was pretty exciting. I was in a breakout around a bunch of different community stuff, and definitely meetups have wallowed a little bit since COVID, just because getting together in person is harder when people aren't going to offices, and meetup organizers have kind of been waylaid by life things beyond COVID, and it's good to have this Global Elixir Meetup kind of heart starter to get everyone together, and hopefully we've got 20 people online and probably another 15 people watching on the stream. I didn't check what the numbers were, and 10 people in person here. So that's a pretty awesome turnout. So it's pretty exciting to see where we're at. Then the next day was Wednesday. That was the training day. And there were actually a bunch of trainings, but at least half of them were Ash trainings, which was kind of a surprise. I wasn't expecting 2 Ash trainings to pop up that, weren't me and Zach, who've been doing Ash trainings for a few years now. And so it was a bit unfortunate that I wasn't able to go to them. What have you done? But yeah, Matt Shankar, who's doing some awesome stuff in India and has, I think, written a book, which was also kind of surprising. And Francisco works for YWorks out of, I think it's Mexico. And yeah, building Ash stuff. So it really was heartening to see just the community getting together and self-organizing around an idea, which is pretty cool. And so this was Zach and my training. It was largely the afternoon, just covering, at least as best as possible, everything that's kicking around in Ash AI. And there really is a lot in there, so definitely check it out if you haven't already. There is MCP servers, not only for doing development, but for exposing your application capabilities out to MCP clients like Claude or any AI tooling. MCPs are basically just APIs for LLMs and connecting the various bits and exposing tools for use by LLMs. Yeah, there's vectorization, there's a chat interface that you can generate to get a chat interface straight out of your app, so you can effectively talk to your app securely through the use of all of the Ash actions and permissions, which is pretty exciting. And certainly given the threat around LLM and MCP security, doing it safely is pretty important. This is sort of an example of just how you expose out Ash tools. It looks pretty much just like another API like GraphQL or REST or something. So that's an example. You can run agents using Reactor, because Reactor is just a way to sort of sequence declaratively steps together, and hooking that round in a loop with sort of agentic actions is certainly a pretty straightforward way to declaratively build agentic systems. That is how you build your MCP server. And that was the Ash training day, or the trainings, pretty successful. There were a lot of talks. One of the ones that struck me was the opening keynote. And Alison is like effectively, an absolute veteran of open source. So gave a pretty compelling, talk about how to build resilient open source communities. And yeah, it was great that she was able to come along and present that. Worth watching. In the hallway track, I met Josh Wood, who is the founder of Honey Badger, one of the sort of AppSignal, APM, Sentry, that kind of thing, error monitoring and application monitoring. And one of the things that's probably understated about Ash is the ability to effectively get observability basically for free. And so we hacked on Honey Badger implementation, which is something we've been meaning to get around to for quite a while. And sort of within an hour, we had a reasonable Honey Badger implementation. And Josh had tested it with a sort of sample app and got stuff happening in Honey Badger, which was pretty cool. So lots more to come around on that. I mean, as a 3-track 2-day conference, there's a lot of talks. And Jose was there, not in person, but drawing the rest of the hour. One of the highlights was the expert language server is now available in alpha and certainly looking for testers and contributions. So that's been a while in the making. It is, for anyone who hasn't followed the journey, it's the joining of 3 disparate and different approaches to language servers in Elixir. And so a pretty ambitious project, but hopefully we get the one language server to rule them all. That's Shankar, who I mentioned before. He brought his son and did the training, and yeah, wrote the second Ash book. And Srini's on the right, who's been to, I think, as many conferences as I have, which is exciting. This was the keynote. You'll have to watch it online. It was kind of terrifying being the cameo in Bruce Tate's keynote talk, but yeah, I think it went pretty well. People enjoyed it. After the conference, I kind of made 10-year-old me happy by going to Kennedy Space Center. There is a theme here. Reusable rockets. One of the other metaphors that Rob didn't cover, and I'm pretty sure the mise en place was his idea, by the way, or at least we gave each other ideas. But I think a better way to look at what we're doing with Ash is sort of we're trying to, as software developers, deliver payloads to space. But every time we build an application, we're literally building the rocket that gets it there again, every time from scratch. And so, like think of how the economics of space travel were changed by reusing the rocket and landing it and, jazzing it up for the next launch. Some pretty compelling economics there. This was pretty cool. I was not expecting this. It was sort of, you go into a theater and you see the space shuttle movie and then they pull back the screen and then there is the hall with Atlantis in it. And yeah, that was pretty cool. There we go. This was the other thing you can do in Orlando is watch rocket launches from the beach. Just got to say that was a bit of a highlight. While waiting, I also got to go for a spin. But the noise hasn't kicked in. We're about 10 Ks away. Noise hasn't kicked in. It's just starting to kick in now. Wait a minute. It was I think that's as close as you can get without being in the Kennedy Space Center. It was too early because it wasn't even open. So I think that was about as close as you can safely get because they had someone on the beach going, you can't go any further. Although if you'd run really fast, maybe you could have made it. All right. So that was the US portion. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we'll speed through this. So Varberg, a small little town with a very fancy train station on the west coast of Sweden, was the host for Goatmire. Now, the hotel that Lars put us up in was intriguing. The Lenin bath is how that translates. And it was literally a blue-tiled Lenin-themed spa that was definitely a cure for some travel weariness. But yeah, it was pretty hilarious. Yeah. The more time we spent in there, the more Lenin it became. There was just tributes to Lenin everywhere, which is very funny. It was a very quirky hotel. And so first stop was our sort of Ash Core team day, which we spent a day sort of getting together in person because we haven't ever really done that. And so yeah, we went through what people have been working on and sort of went through some road mapping stuff and some planning. And yeah, Jonathan was talking about what we had named Atlas, but we've renamed Clarity, which I can talk a bit about later. It's sort of think of it as an introspection visualizer for kind of deriving visual representations of everything within your Ash application. It's pretty exciting. It's now launched. I'm looking forward to sort of refining that a lot more. So it, yeah, really shows you what Ash can do, because we've kind of been missing some of that. So yeah, it was a fun day. And then Torquil is our newest Ash core team member. He not only worked on Ash events, which is a way of basically having event sourcing as well as having your familiar, relational noun-based model of the world. We are also able to have event sourcing and replayable events as well as your normal view of the world. And so my firm belief is that you eventually are going to need event sourcing, whether you think you do or not. And by the time you do realize it, it's probably too late to have baked it in. So being able to have both without incurring the mental tax of having to think about how to do event sourcing when you're not used to doing things that way is pretty powerful. But not satisfied with just solving that problem, he also worked on Ash TypeScript, which is a new way of effectively exposing out your Ash capabilities, your Ash actions as RPC calls, and then effectively generating all of the TypeScript types and data fetching hooks for everything that you need to actually call the API that it created for you. It's not super different theoretically from the idea of exposing a GraphQL and then using GraphQL code gen to do the same thing, but it's a kind of neater, more sort of native way of doing that with less moving parts. And it's sort of pretty exciting. That's sort of maybe a couple of weeks old in terms of being launched, and definitely worth checking out. And there's exciting things happening there, because you don't have to do it in React necessarily, but you do get all of the TypeScript types and effectively an RPC API. I feel like James is about to say something. I heard a mic unmuting.
No, I was just coughing.
Cool. Is there anything else that's probably worth talking about Ash TypeScript? I don't know if I've done it justice. Or the team day.
I mean, I hate JavaScript, and now I'm actually tempted to give it another whirl. So I think that should stand for something.
Yeah, I mean, it does generate TypeScript rather than JavaScript, so it may have something on that. But I think one of the things that has been...
It's just JavaScript with nicer shoes on, right?
Yeah, but much nicer shoes. But I think the key win here is that we can hook into where everyone on the web is, well, at least a large percentage of people are doing a lot of the front end UI work. And one thing that we've really struggled with, I think, is completeness of live view component libraries. And yeah, I think that's changing, and there's lots of options, but the completeness of them and just the level of polish isn't quite there, not in the same level as a React or Vue or what have you. And so just being able to lean into more traditional UI is a big win. But you don't have to do that, but having the option to do it is pretty awesome. And certainly being able to do it whenever you feel like doing it is pretty great too. All right, so this was scenery of Varberg. The cold bathhouse is on the right. That was where Lars took us to get naked and go in sauna, which was quite Swedish, the Swedish cultural moment. And then you go in the sauna, it was a very large sauna, and then you get hot enough and then dip yourself in the ocean. Quite an odd experience, but quite fun. I definitely feel more Swedish cultured after that.
How many people were in the sauna at once?
I don't know, there's sort of like a dozen. Could have probably fitted 20 people if you like squishing in. And I didn't go see it because I was busy doing other things, but that's the old Varberg fortress. Apparently Varberg had swapped between the Danes and the Swedes multiple times over history. So there you go. Very cute little town, which was then the host of 3 days of conferencing, starting with a day of NervesConf, the first EU version of it. And they kicked it off in style with Nerves. Doesn't show it here, but it was the whole sort of trailer video of building a Nerves powered automated car and then driving it around obviously safely around a track rather than on the road. But yeah, pretty exciting. Previous Nerves automations were, building electric boats that Kinney did a while back. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool to see that. James did a awesome talk on Reactor and Nerves. And then I think, did I miss something? I think I missed, there was a picture I had that the end of NervesConf was actually a drone talk, which was honestly amazing. There was so much equipment on stage, and it was actually Demir's first talk. So he keynoted and actually had some of the most complicated equipment setup I've ever seen. And he actually also did drone stunts as well in the talk. Very cool. Sam Aaron kicked off with some Sonic Pi and some Tower 5 live coding music, which is pretty cool. And the very first keynote on Goatmire Day was something I was involved in, so I didn't get to see it. Only saw it from behind the screen. But it got pretty crazy. Zach had some interesting ideas that I didn't know how they were going to pan out, but something about introducing Ash Oracle, breaking the timeline, and having various participants come back from the future to warn us. And the Ash gang, including me on the right there, did some amateur dramatics talking about, warning us that Claude was about to destroy our timeline. So be careful. I do like this photo of James. I like the double goggles. Definitely winning. I'll just zip through some of these talks. This was a particularly good talk that Anita did that was legacy migrating a Perl monstrosity, if I might dare say, into gradually, into a Elixir Phoenix thing. And it was basically a masterclass in, how you do legacy migrations while sort of keeping the plane flying while rebuilding it. Sasha did for the third time his Tell Me a Story in a Hamlet theme. Absolutely classic. Once the videos come out, you'll have to watch it, but it won't be quite the same as seeing it in a theater with the props. His main message was keep your PRs small and really think about, your reviewers and be kind to them when you're publishing PRs. But it takes an hour to say that, and it goes on a journey. That is the Goatmire goat. I think that art is hilarious. I think it's probably my favorite bit. So on day 2, we started with a grand piano and a pianist in support of Flora, who works at HCA in the US, doing some, I don't know if anyone's seen the Water Park Talks. If you haven't seen the Water Park Talks by Brian Hunter, you should definitely check those out. She's on that team. A team of about a dozen Elixir engineers building effectively one of the fastest in-memory databases ever, and they couldn't use the database because it was too slow. So they stuffed everything in memory and then ensured that, there was basically zero downtime and no chance of anything ever being lost, because they're actually event sourcing in Gen servers. They have a Gen server process for every patient, and they keep it around in case there's any messages, and they effectively event source. So yeah, a full murder mystery tour with a, vote. I thought it was Claude. Spoiler alert. Then Lars did a, is that working? All right. Everything's very laggy for some reason. Lars did a pretty awesome demo where he literally booted, I think, 5,000 Nerves VMs on a 192 core machine, which was pretty impressive. And yeah, virtualized Nerves devices. And they spun up in a very short amount of time. A fairly impressive tech demo. It was James grabbing something in the air, doing his presentation. Yeah, Jonathan did like a pretty awesome talk about how to deal as a library author with CVEs. Definitely worth watching when it comes out. Me talking about reinventing the wheel. Sam Aaron grabbing some kind of football or passing it off. He did an awesome talk. He always does amazing talks with super high energy, talking about just how he was teaching kids how to code, build music, and think about, computing ideas through the mechanism of music. And yeah, super awesome talk. And then because 4 days of stuff wasn't enough, we did another thing on Saturday, which was the first ever Ash Summit. We got 50+ people there. We got over 10 talks, and it was pretty exciting. So yeah, we went through the Ash origin story, which I can tell you after we've had some pizza. Yeah, we had some really awesome talks. Jonathan Steele talked about, how he was, building stuff, and sort of getting to grips as a junior developer with building things using Ash. Howard talked about how he is building a dyslexic tutoring application, with Ash as well. We released Clarity, which was called Atlas. Now released, definitely worth checking out. And the longer talks were, Matt, who's here in the audience, did an awesome talk on showing off some of the ideas around his Ash Neo4j plugin, but also he's got a thing called Outstanding, which is sort of a differ and a way to, I think he could probably chime in and do it justice. But my understanding was you're doing a diff between two very deeply hierarchical structures and identifying what needs to happen for sort of planning purposes. And he's an architect at Telstra using that idea in production for effectively getting to large network configurations, getting them right and making sure that that happens. Did I do that justice at all, Matt?
Yeah, that was pretty good, actually.
Oh, hang on. I can't hear you.
Yeah.
There you are.
Yeah.
Cool. Already talked about Talk Hills thing. He presented that. James actually didn't talk about Reactor because everyone had actually seen it before. Mario talked about, community adoption and just how to go about marketing. I've pasted a bunch of photos in there. Thank you, photos. Barnabas talked about using Ash with Ash Discord to, effectively work with, integrations and the Discord bot. That was the venue. We were up in the top right corner. Very cool, right by the ocean, and this was the crowd. So yeah, way more people than I think we thought. We started off with sort of hopes of getting 20-30 people there tops, but yeah, everyone stuck around and had the energy to, spend another half day looking at Ash, which is very cool. So yeah, this was another thing I didn't have in.
I think one of the most exciting things about Ash, the Ash Summit, was that we had people come who didn't even attend Goatmire.
Oh yeah, yeah, we did actually have an extra Ash core team member join us, and there was another couple of people that just didn't come to Goatmire but traveled to just come to Ash Summit, which was very cool. Very exciting. So yeah, there's lots of stuff happening in the space, and I'm struggling to keep it all in my head. And I haven't covered all of it. This was another thing that Oliver, who's from Norway, I believe, and pretty vocal in the sort of Discords and Slacks, he introduced Cerebras, which I don't know if anyone else has heard of, but it's an extremely fast, I don't know how they make it so fast, LLM provider. He was showing us Qwen, which is an Alibaba model, Qwen 480B coder. And the speed at which this thing produced tokens was absolutely ridiculous. And he was talking about how he's building something Claude-like to do either Elixir or Ash and sort of better tools, but because he's sick of waiting around for Claude to do stuff that's kind of average. And so this was particularly exciting. It's worth checking it out, just even to see how fast it produces tokens. It was doing like 1,000 to 2,000 tokens a second, which compared to what Claude Code does, a lot. And then we just had time to do sort of what's happening in the core team before we wrapped up and had a nap. And it's taken all of us quite a while to recover. So I think I'll probably leave it there. There is a book out. It's about to be in print, and there is a code. I'll share that out a different way, but yeah, Goatmire 2025 if you want to get a discount. And yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's all I got. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Josh.
Oh yeah, this bit. That was the cute ending of the puppetry.